When your own son tells you to pack your things because the houses you built now belong to his wife's family, what do? Most mothers would cry. But me? I just smiled, walked to my safe, and unlocked something that would change everything. "I'm sorry, Mom," my son said, standing in front of me with his wife by his side. "These two houses, they belong to my wife's family now. You can pack your things." His words cut through me like a knife. I looked around at the two houses I had worked my whole life to build. Every brick, every nail, every piece of furniture held a memory of sweat, tears, and sacrifice. I looked at him. My own son. The same boy who once clung to my leg, begging me not to leave for work, because he missed me too much. Now he stood tall, shoulders straight, like a stranger delivering bad news to someone he no longer cared about. His wife, Clara, crossed her arms and smirked. "We just think it's fair, Mom. My parents need a place to stay, and these houses are too much for you to handle alone. You should be grateful we're taking care of things." Grateful. The word echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just smiled. That same quiet smile I used to wear when life hit me hard, but I refused to break. Slowly, I turned, walked into my room, and opened the safe behind my wardrobe. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but from the calm before a storm. Inside that safe was everything they didn't know about. The secret they would never see coming. I touched the envelope on top and whispered, "Let's see who really owns what." Then I turned back toward the door, hearing my son's voice fade down the hallway. "She'll understand soon, Clara. It's better this way." I closed the safe with a soft click and smiled again. He had no idea what lesson was waiting for him. 30 years ago, I was a young widow named Margaret. My husband, Daniel, died suddenly in a car crash, leaving me with a 5-year-old boy, James. I remember holding his little hand at the funeral, promising him through my tears that I would give him the best life possible. We didn't have much then, just a small room in a shared house and the kindness of neighbors who sometimes left food by our door. I worked as a cleaner at the city hospital, scrubbing floors at dawn and wiping tears at night. Life was hard, but James was my reason. Every time he smiled, I found strength. When he turned 10, I took a second job at a diner. My hands ached from washing dishes, but when I looked at the school fees I managed to pay, my heart swelled with pride. I told myself that one day, James would never have to struggle the way I did. Years passed, and the little boy who used to wait for me by the window grew into a tall young man with big dreams. I remember the first time he came home from university. He hugged me tightly, saying, "Mom, one day I'll buy you a big house. You won't ever work again." Those words became my comfort during lonely nights. And true to his promise, after graduating, James got a job at a big construction company. He worked hard, and within a few years he earned enough money to buy land. He came to me, eyes shining, and said, "Mom, I want us to build 2 houses here. One for me and one for you. We'll always be close." It was one of the happiest days of my life. I invested every little savings I had into that project. I sold my jewelry, the old car Daniel left behind, even some of my late husband's tools. Together we built those houses, 2 beautiful homes standing side by side. For years, everything was perfect. I lived in one house, James lived in the other. He got married to Clara, and I welcomed her warmly, like the daughter I never had. She was charming at first, always helping me cook, calling me Mom, bringing flowers on weekends. But as months turned into years, I began to see small cracks. She started controlling everything, from how James spoke to me, to how often he visited. When I wanted to talk to my son, she would say, "He's busy, Mom. Let him rest." And James, he would just smile weakly, like a man trapped in someone else's shadow. Still, I kept quiet. I didn't want to cause trouble. Then one morning, everything changed. James and Clara called me over. They stood in the yard between our 2 houses, holding documents. Clara smiled sweetly and said, "Mom, we've been talking. My parents are moving to the city soon. We thought it would be best to let them have these houses, both of them. You can move to the countryside. It's peaceful there." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when I saw the papers, my laughter froze. My name was no longer on the ownership documents. Everything, both houses, had been transferred to James's name months ago. And now he was giving them away. My hands shook, but I refused to let them see me break. You did this behind my back? I asked softly. James avoided my eyes. Mom, it's complicated. You won't understand. Clara's family has helped us a lot. It's only fair. Fair. That word again. I felt my heart sink. But then something inside me shifted. The years of struggle, the sacrifices, the endless nights of praying for a better future. They all came rushing back. I smiled. Not out of madness, but out of realization. I had seen too much of life to let betrayal destroy me. Without a word, I turned and walked back inside. My steps were steady, my mind calm. I opened my wardrobe, pushed aside the old clothes, and revealed the hidden safe. My fingers brushed against the cool metal as I unlocked it. Inside were documents. Papers that no one but me knew existed. They were the original ownership files. The real ones signed and sealed still in my name. The ones James never found because I never told him about the second registration I made years ago. The one that tied the land to my late husband's trust, not to James. As I held those papers, my lips curled into a quiet smile. They thought they had taken everything. But the game had just begun. And as I closed the safe, I heard Clara's laughter echo from the yard. She's too old to fight us, James. Don't worry. Oh, my dear son, I thought to myself, you're about to learn what ownership really means. That night, I stayed awake planning. The moonlight fell across the safe like a silver secret, and for the first time in years, I felt no fear, only strength. By morning, something would happen that neither of them could forget. The next day, I invited a visitor, an old friend named Mr. Harris. He was a lawyer, and one of the few people who knew about the trust Daniel and I had created long ago. I handed him the documents silently, and after reading them, he looked at me with a slow grin. So you want to teach them a lesson? He asked. I nodded. Not out of anger, but out of love. They must learn respect the hard way. And that was when the first step of my plan began. But before I could take it further, something unexpected happened. Something that shook me to my core. The next morning, the air felt heavy, almost too quiet. Even the birds outside seemed unsure whether to sing. I sat by the window, watching Clara's parents move boxes into one of my houses like they already owned the place. My heart ached, but my face stayed calm. From the corner of my eye, I saw James pacing in the yard, talking on his phone. Yes, Mom is fine, he said quickly. She understands. We'll move her things soon. Understands? He really thought I'd just walk away from everything I built? Oh, poor boy. He had no idea the storm I was quietly preparing. Mr. Harris, my old lawyer friend, arrived shortly after breakfast. He wore his usual gray suit and that calm smile that could melt mountains. Morning, Margaret, he greeted. Are you sure you want to go through with this? I nodded. I gave my son everything. My youth, my strength, my future. Now he's trying to take what doesn't belong to him. If I don't stop this, he'll lose himself completely. Mr. Harris opened his briefcase and pulled out a few envelopes. Here are the certified copies of the property trust. You'll need to take them to the city records office for revalidation. Once that's done, no one can transfer ownership again without your consent. I took the papers with steady hands. Thank you, Harris. But I want to do more than just protect what's mine. I want him to understand the meaning of betrayal. He smiled faintly. You sound like your husband. Daniel once said the same thing when someone stole from him. That name, Daniel, still gave me strength. My husband had been a builder. A man who believed that hard work and honesty were worth more than gold. If he were alive, he'd never let this happen. After Mr. Harris left, I locked the documents safely back in the safe, tucked deep under a false bottom that even James wouldn't think to look for. Then, I put on my old blue shawl and headed outside. Clara and her parents were in the yard, rearranging furniture. Her father, a stout man with a proud face, looked at me like I was an intruder. Good morning, I said softly. He nodded without looking at me. Clara, however, gave me that fake smile I had grown to hate. Mom, we're just settling them in. You should start packing. We've already arranged a small apartment for you downtown. I tilted my head, pretending to think. Oh, that's thoughtful. But tell me, dear, who paid for these houses again? Clara blinked, confused. Well, James did. Obviously. I smiled. All right. James. My son who couldn't afford rent before he moved in here. Funny how fast things change. Her smile faltered, but before she could respond, James came out. Mom, please don't start. We've discussed this already. Discussed? I repeated softly. You mean you told me your decision? That's not discussion, my dear. That's a command. His face hardened. Mom, I'm just doing what's best for everyone. Everyone but me, I said quietly. He opened his mouth, but no words came. For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes, doubt. But Clara quickly took his hand and whispered something in his ear. His face stiffened again. I'm sorry, he said simply. This is final. I looked at both of them, then at the house behind me, the home I had built with my husband's hands and my life savings. My heart was breaking, but I refused to let a tear fall. I see, I said finally. Then I suppose I should get ready to leave. I turned and walked back into my house slowly, feeling their eyes on my back. But what they didn't know was that every word I spoke, every calm step I took, was part of my plan. Inside, I sat down on the couch and took out a small, worn photo album. The first picture was of me, Daniel, and baby James standing in front of the foundation of this very house. Daniel had written on the back, built with love, protected by truth. I ran my fingers over those words. Daniel, I whispered. I think it's time our son remembered what truth looks like. That afternoon, I called the city records office and arranged a meeting for the next day. They confirmed what I already knew, that the trust papers were still legally binding. The ownership was still mine. The transfer James made was invalid because the land was part of a registered trust that couldn't be changed without my signature. My lips curved into a smile. So all their power games were built on lies. The next morning, I dressed neatly, put on Daniel's old wristwatch, and went to the records office. The clerk there, a young woman named Leah, helped me file the revalidation papers. Once it's approved, she said, no one will be able to touch this property. It will be legally locked under your name again. Thank you, I said softly. You've done more than you know. As I stepped outside, the wind brushed against my face, carrying the scent of freedom. But when I got home, something felt off. The front door was open. I rushed inside. The wardrobe was wide open, and the safe was gone. My heart froze. I checked every corner, every drawer, every room. The safe was truly gone. James must have found it. Or worse, Clara. I stood there, trembling, my breathing shallow. That safe held not only the documents but everything that proved my ownership. I felt the weight of betrayal crash down on me all over again. Just then, the sound of a car engine roared outside. I ran to the window. James's truck was pulling out of the driveway, Clara in the passenger seat, both of them smiling like they had just won a war. My knees almost gave way. They had taken it. But even as the panic set in, something inside me hardened again. No, I thought. This isn't over. You can steal a box, but you can't steal the truth. I picked up the phone and dialed Mr. Harris immediately. They've taken the safe, I said breathlessly. Everything's gone. He was silent for a moment, then said calmly, Don't worry, Margaret. I made copies of every document. Meet me tomorrow morning. And whatever you do, don't confront them yet. I nodded, gripping the phone tightly. My body was shaking, but not from fear anymore, from anger. They thought they had won. But tomorrow, the real lesson would begin. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, staring at the empty space where the safe once stood. The moonlight shimmered on the floor like a silver warning. At around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. Quiet ones. I peeked through the curtain. Someone was walking toward my house, holding a flashlight. Clara. She stopped by the front door, whispered something to someone behind her. And then I saw another shadow move, James. My heart pounded. What were they doing here at this hour? Then I saw it. James holding a box. The safe. But instead of returning it, he was burying it behind the fence. I gasped softly, my hand over my mouth. They weren't keeping it for themselves. They were hiding it. Hiding the truth. As I watched them cover it with soil and walk away, laughing quietly, a strange calm washed over me. They thought they had buried my power. But what they had really buried was their peace. Because tomorrow I would dig it all back up. And this time, I wouldn't just take back my houses. I would take back my name. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The air was cold, sharp, and still. The kind of silence that only comes before something big is about to happen. I sat by the window, sipping tea, watching the faint line of light crawl over the roofs of the two houses that once brought me pride. Now they stood like strangers staring at me from across the yard. As the sun rose higher, I saw Clara's parents outside, sweeping and laughing like everything already belonged to them. My stomach twisted. But I didn't let anger rule me. I just kept watching, quiet, like a hunter studying her prey. At exactly 9 o'clock, I heard a car horn outside. It was Mr. Harris. He stepped out with a leather briefcase in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. "Good morning, Margaret," he greeted. "You look like someone ready to teach a lesson." I smiled faintly. "They buried my safe last night. I saw it." He chuckled softly. "Oh, I'm sure they think that's the end of the story. But lucky for us, I have everything we need right here." He patted his briefcase. Inside that bag was my strength, certified copies of every land document, the original trust deed, and a letter from the registrar confirming my full ownership. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I've been ready for 30 years, I replied. We drove to the city property office together. I signed the revalidation papers again, and the officer confirmed that my ownership was now sealed under my name. No further transfers allowed without my approval. That meant one thing. My son's so-called gift to his wife's family was now officially worthless. As we left the office, Mr. Harris turned to me and said, "What's your next step?" I looked out the window at the long road ahead. "I'm not just taking the houses back. I'm taking back my respect." When I got home, I saw James sitting on the front porch, waiting for me. His face looked troubled, eyes tired, lips pressed tight. "Mom," he began quietly, "Clara told me you've been going around doing something behind our backs." I raised an eyebrow. "Behind your backs? You mean the way you took everything I owned and gave it away without telling me?" He looked down, ashamed, but quickly straightened up. "It's not what you think. Clara said her parents were going to lose their home. I just wanted to help. I thought you'd understand." I stepped closer and studied him. "Help? You call taking what's not yours helping? James, everything you see here, these walls, that gate, that fence, I built them. I worked for years so you wouldn't go hungry. And now you give away my life's work to people who never lifted a finger for you." "Mom, please." "No," I said firmly. "You've been blind." And she made sure of it. He frowned. "You're blaming Clara again?" "Yes," I said coldly. "Because she's the one whispering in your ear, turning you against your own blood." Just then the door opened. Clara stepped out, her expression sharp and proud. "Oh, I see we're playing the victim card again," she said, crossing her arms. "James, don't let her guilt trip you. She doesn't understand that you're trying to build a better future for us." I turned to her, calm and steady. "A better future doesn't come from betrayal, Clara. It comes from respect. Something you clearly never learned." Her eyes narrowed. "You old woman, do you think these houses scare me? They're already ours. You can leave any time you want." "Oh really?" I said softly, my lips curling into a small smile. I pulled out the envelope Mr. Harris had given me and handed it to James. "Read this." He frowned and opened it. His eyes moved quickly across the paper. The revalidated ownership certificate, the trust confirmation, the legal notice declaring both houses officially under my name again. His face drained of color. "Mom, what is this?" Clara snatched the paper from him, scanning it quickly. "This can't be real. You said everything was already transferred." "It was," I said calmly. "But you see, dear, the land these houses sit on was registered under a family trust my husband and I created decades ago. The transfer you made? It's illegal." "Meaning?" I paused and looked her straight in the eye. "You and your parents have been living in my houses. As guests." Her mouth fell open. James looked between us, completely lost. "Clara, what did you tell me? You said the lawyer confirmed it." she stammered. He did. I thought. I turned toward the porch steps and looked at the boxes Clara's parents had brought in. You might want to tell your parents to start packing again. I'll be calling the police tomorrow to have the trespassing documented. Mom, please, you can't do that. James pleaded. They're family now. Family, I said softly, turning back to him. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't deceive. And family doesn't throw their mother away like old furniture. For the first time, I saw tears in his eyes. He took a step toward me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But Clara wasn't done. You think this little paper can scare us? She shouted. You're an old woman. You think anyone will believe you? I looked at her with quiet pity. They don't have to believe me. The law already does. And with that, I walked back into my house, leaving her fuming and James speechless. That evening, I called Mr. Harris again. It's done, I said. He chuckled. I figured. What's next? I want to give them a few days to think they've lost, I said slowly. Then I'll show them what true loss feels like. He hesitated. Be careful, Margaret. Don't let revenge consume you. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said. I'm doing it for every mother who gave everything to her child and got betrayal in return. After hanging up, I went outside. The sky was turning orange, the kind of color Daniel used to love. I could almost hear his voice saying, You did good, Maggie. Stand tall. But just as I started to relax, a loud crash came from next door. I ran toward the sound, and there, in the middle of James's living room, Clara's father was shouting at James. You lied to us, he roared. You said the houses were ours. James tried to calm him down, but the man shoved him hard. We sold everything to move here. You cheated us. Clara screamed, trying to hold her father back, but he slapped her arm away. The scene was chaos, shouting, crying, anger bursting out of every corner. I stood at the doorway, unseen, watching my son's world crumble just as easily as he tried to destroy mine. And in that moment, something inside me broke, not from pain, but from the quiet sadness of seeing my son finally realize what he had done. I turned to leave, but before I could, Clara's father noticed me. His eyes were full of rage. You, he shouted, pointing at me. This is your fault. You turned my daughter's husband against us. He stormed toward me, his face red with anger. James shouted, No, stop. But the man didn't listen. He grabbed my arm roughly, shaking me. You old witch, he yelled. You ruined everything. Before I could even react, he pushed me backward, hard. I stumbled, lost my balance, and fell against the stone step, hitting my head. The last thing I saw before my vision blurred was James rushing toward me, shouting my name in panic. Then everything went black. The world around me was soft, hazy, and full of distant voices. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then the sharp beeping sound filled my ears, and I realized I was in a hospital bed. The ceiling above me was white, the kind of white that makes you blink twice. My head throbbed, wrapped in a bandage. My hands were weak, but my heart still beat strong. I turned slowly to my right and saw someone sitting beside me. James. His face was pale, his eyes swollen from crying. When he noticed I was awake, he shot up from his chair. Mom, he gasped, gripping my hand tightly. Mom, I'm so sorry. Please don't move. You fell, you hit your head. I was so scared. I blinked, my throat dry. How long have I been here? 2 days, he said quietly. The doctor said you were lucky. It could have been worse. I closed my eyes, memories flashing back. The shouting, Clara's father's face twisted in anger, the fall, and the pain. Slowly, everything came back to me. What about Clara? I asked weakly. James hesitated. She's gone, Mom. My eyes opened again. Gone. She packed her things and left with her parents the same night you were taken to the hospital. Her father was arrested for assaulting you. I tried to stop the police, but they said it was already reported by a neighbor. They took him away before morning. I lay still, my mind spinning. And you? I asked softly. He looked away, tears filling his eyes again. I stayed. I couldn't leave. I didn't know what to do. Everything's falling apart, Mom. I've lost Clara, her parents hate me, and I almost lost you too. His voice broke on the last word. I sighed deeply, the weight of everything pressing on my chest. James, what happened to you? You weren't raised this way. Your father would have been heartbroken to see how far you've fallen. He covered his face with his hands. I know, Mom. I let her control me. She said she loved me, but she always wanted more money, more power, more everything. And I was stupid. I wanted to make her happy. Tears slipped down his cheeks, dripping onto my blanket. For a long moment, I just looked at him. My son, the same boy who once ran to me with scraped knees, now broken by his own mistakes. My heart hurt, but it also softened. James, I whispered, the world will test you in many ways. But no test is greater than loyalty. Once you forget where you come from, you lose who you are. He nodded slowly, unable to speak. I rested my hand on his. You can fix this. But not with words, with actions. He squeezed my hand tightly. I will, Mom. I promise. I'll make things right. A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital. The doctor said I needed rest, but I was determined to go home. Mr. Harris drove me back himself. When we arrived, everything felt different. The yard was empty, no boxes, no loud laughter from Clara's parents. Just silence. James followed me as I stepped out of the car. Mom, I've already filed a restraining order. They can't come back here. The police are still investigating. I nodded, looking around the houses. Good. Now maybe peace can return to this place. We walked to the garden, the one Daniel and I planted when we first built the houses. The flowers had wilted, choked by weeds. It looked sad, forgotten. I knelt down slowly and touched the dry soil. Your father used to say, neglect kills more than time does, I murmured. It's true for people too. I neglected the signs, James. I wanted to believe you were happy. He knelt beside me. Mom, I'll fix everything. I promise. I'll make the garden beautiful again. And the houses, I'll repair them. Whatever it takes. I smiled faintly. Then start there. Let's rebuild together. Over the next few weeks, James changed. For the first time in years, he worked with his own hands, repainting walls, fixing broken fences, cutting grass. I watched him every day from the porch, quiet but proud. Sometimes he'd bring me tea and sit beside me, talking about the past. He'd laugh about childhood memories, how he used to draw on the walls or sneak extra cookies when I wasn't looking. Those moments made me feel like I had my son back. But I still saw guilt in his eyes, the kind that doesn't fade easily. One afternoon, he came to me holding a small box. Mom, I dug this up. My eyes widened. The safe. He set it on the table gently. I found it where we buried it. I don't even know why I helped them do it. I was blinded. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I looked at the safe for a long moment, then at him. You already took the first step, James. The second is to never repeat the mistake. He nodded, then quietly walked away, leaving me with the safe. I opened it slowly. Inside were the old documents, slightly dirty from the soil, and a few family photos I had kept there. One photo caught my eye, the three of us, me, Daniel, and little James standing in front of the unfinished house. Daniel's arm was around my shoulder, and James was grinning, missing a front tooth. My eyes filled with tears. You promised me we'd always be together, I whispered. And somehow, I think you kept that promise. As I sat there, the wind blew softly, carrying the smell of rain. For the first time in a long while, I felt peace returning to my heart. But just when I thought things were finally calm, life decided to test me again. That evening, as the sky darkened, I heard a car pull up outside. James went to check, but I followed him, something inside me uneasy. When he opened the gate, his face went pale. What are you doing here? He stammered. It was Clara. She stood there in the rain, hair messy, eyes red from crying, clutching a small bag. James, please, she said, her voice trembling. I have nowhere else to go. He froze. Clara, after everything. Please, she whispered. My father is in jail, my mother left me, I've lost everything. I just want to talk. I stepped forward slowly. Talk, I said quietly. Or manipulate again? She turned to me, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was wrong, Mom. I was so wrong. I thought I was helping my family, But I destroyed yours. I don't want your houses or your money. I want forgiveness. James looked at me, unsure. Mom, what do we do? I stared at her for a long time. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. For the first time, she looked human, not proud or cruel but broken. I took a deep breath. Forgiveness isn't something you ask for, I said finally. It's something you earn. She nodded, crying harder. Then let me earn it. Please let me stay for a while, just until I get back on my feet. James looked at me again, waiting for my decision. I hesitated, torn between mercy and caution. Then after a long silence I said, you can stay, but not in my house. You'll stay in the guest room next door. And if you ever try anything again. She shook her head quickly. I won't. I promise. I nodded slowly. Then you'll have your chance. As she walked inside, rain dripping from her hair, I felt something cold settle in my heart. Because while forgiveness was possible, trust would take a lot longer. That night, as I lay in bed, the wind howled outside. I looked toward the window, thinking of Daniel again. I'm doing my best, I whispered. But I can't shake the feeling that something else is coming. And just as I drifted to sleep, I heard a faint noise from the other house, a sound that made my eyes snap open. It was the sound of the safe being opened. The next morning, I woke up before the sun rose. The world outside was quiet, too quiet, as if it knew what I was about to do. I took my morning tea, not out of habit, but to steady my heart. Then I went to the old safe, the one my husband had left for me before he passed. The same safe I had smiled at when my son told me the houses weren't mine anymore. Inside that safe were not just papers, but power. The deeds, the documents, and most importantly, a letter my late husband wrote years ago. Mary, if anyone tries to take what you built, remember, you own more than you show. I carefully removed the documents, tucking them in my old brown purse. Then I went to the bank, where my lawyer, Mr. Thompson, was already waiting. He looked surprised to see me dressed so simply. Mrs. Mary, he said softly, are you sure about this? I smiled. My son thinks the houses are the only thing I own. Let's remind him what his mother built. That day, I officially transferred ownership of both houses to a trust, one that only I controlled. The trust papers stated that no one could sell, gift, or claim the properties without my written permission. Then I quietly put my son and his wife on a 6-month rental lease for both houses. I didn't need revenge. I needed order. By evening, I called my son. David, I said calmly, I'd like you and Lily to come over for dinner tonight. He sounded annoyed. We're busy, Mom. Maybe next week. Good, I said lightly. Then I'll just have my lawyer drop by tomorrow morning. He has a few things you should sign. There was a pause. Then he sighed. Fine. We'll come. That night, when they walked into my home, they were surprised to see Mr. Thompson seated at the dining table. I served dinner as if nothing was wrong, roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and Lily's favorite peach pie. But halfway through the meal, I slid 2 envelopes across the table. Before dessert, I want you to read these, I said. David frowned and opened his. His eyes widened. Mom, what is this? Lily's face went pale as she scanned her papers. It's simple, I said, smiling softly. Both houses now belong to a trust. You're just tenants. You'll be paying rent every month to me. David stood up, his face red with anger. You can't do this. You gave them to us. I looked him in the eye. No, son. You told me they were for your wife's family. I never agreed. For the first time, Lily didn't speak. She just stared at me, her lips trembling. David looked lost. The same boy who once built treehouses in my backyard, now a man drowning in his own greed. I raised you to be kind, I said quietly. But kindness doesn't mean letting others walk over you. You wanted to teach me a lesson in letting go. Now I'm teaching you one in ownership. He tried to argue, but Mr. Thompson interrupted, clearing his throat. Mrs. Mary's actions are completely legal. These documents are final. Any attempt to challenge them will be a waste of time and money. David's shoulders slumped. He sat back down, defeated. Lily wiped a tear, whispering, We didn't mean for it to go this far. Oh, I know, I said softly. But every storm starts with a small wind. You forgot that a mother's silence doesn't mean weakness. It means she's thinking. I stood up slowly. Dinner's over. You can finish your pie on your way out. They left in silence. The night air felt lighter than it had in months. I walked back to the safe and placed my husband's letter on top of the trust papers. We did it, John, I whispered. Our lesson is complete. A week later, I visited the old community center. The same place where I used to volunteer when my children were small. I donated a portion of my savings to rebuild the roof and sponsor free meals for the elderly. That day, the same lawyer asked me, Mrs. Mary, don't you regret not forgiving them? I smiled. I forgave them the moment I smiled that day. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means setting boundaries with grace. Months passed. David eventually moved out with Lily to a smaller house. I didn't hear from them much, just a few calls here and there. But that was all right. I wasn't bitter. I was finally free from the weight of being taken for granted. Sometimes I still stand by the window at sunset, watching the golden light fall across the two houses my son thought he owned. They look peaceful now, quiet, calm, just like my heart. And every time I see them, I remember that day. The day my son said, Mom, these two houses are for my wife's family now. I smile again just as I did then. Because that was the day I lost my son's respect, but found my own strength. Life lesson. Never let love blind you from the truth. Even as a mother, know when to stand firm. Silence can be powerful. Especially when it speaks through wisdom, not anger. Sometimes silence is the loudest revenge. I didn't shout, I didn't fight. I simply smiled, and taught them that respect can't be taken. It must be earned. If you believe every mother deserves to be valued, tap that like button, leave a kind word in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful life stories like this one.